The film begins in the year 2022 in New York City, and we know that at that time, there was a terrible shortage of food and water because the population reached 40 million people, and there was a significant increase in the percentage of the population. At that time, we see a police officer named Robert sitting in his small house, and we know that he is poor and in the same condition as he is. His assistant professor, who used to work as a university professor, and his current job is sorting the written records of reports and cases at the police station, and he will be there at that time. He reads some records to Robert and tells Robert that he is not interested. He offers Saul to eat with Faber Silver because the food tastes bad as different and lacks flavor and smell. Then Robert puts on his clothes to go to work, and then when he leaves his apartment, we see people sleeping in the entrance of the building and on the stairs. And this is because they have money to rent or buy houses for themselves. And the next morning, we see a person named Gilbert, and we know that he lives in an abandoned car. And a person named Dovin goes to him, and we learn that he is the head of security in the country, and he has something sharp in his hand to kill the famous secret lawyer William, with it in exchange for a large sum of money, and of course eating a lot of everything delicious and good. At the same time, we see William around his house, which is very luxurious and lively. He is with his girlfriend Cheryl, who is thanking her for the video games he bought her, and then Cheryl goes with her personal driver Tab to the supermarket to buy some. She has food for her William, and at that time she pays $279 for very simple needs. And this indicates the terrible prices that are happening in the country. Then Gilbert tries to sneak into William's house, and as soon as he sees William, they are not surprised. They realize that he knew that he was coming to kill him. So Gilbert tells him that those who sent him wanted from him to deliver their message to God before he kills him, which is that they will not bear it and will cause a devastating disaster for them to fall. William is against him, and they say that they are right, but he lets Gilbert kill him without resisting or defending himself. The next day, Robert arrives at William's house to investigate his death, and he finds the property's guard, whose name is Charles, to take a statement from him, and then Cheryl comes and repents and sees William's body at that time, and because the house full of food and alcohol from the rich. Robert seizes the opportunity to try them and then goes to the bathroom and uses soap. Then he goes to Robert's bedroom and takes a pillowcase and puts some things in the house. And then he goes to Shirley's and looks at her body, if there are bruises or signs of beating, because this could be a motive for murder. She assumes that he was a good person and cared for her, and there were no problems between them. And after a while, forensic medicine arrives, and they take William's body. And then Shirley finds out, who repented, that they were throwing the body to the waste disposal plant. At that time, I realized that due to the population density, there was no place left to bury the bodies. When Robert leaves William's house, he takes a pillowcase full of things with him and returns home with a soul waiting for them. They sell the things he took from William's house, including a file of naval science from 2015 to 2019. And then the rich people drink alcohol with a piece of beef. So Eat Soul was sold at that time. He is happy because meat became a rare thing at that time. And the next morning, Robert goes to work, and his boss Hatcher enters and talks to him about the murder of the lawyer, William. They learn that the matter was not a theft, as everyone expected, because nothing was stolen from his house, and they know that this is a clear fraud. Hatcher took what he took from William's house and left, so they sold Robert. He took everything he could, and on Tuesday we saw that the streets were very crowded because this is the day of the sale of Soylent Green, which is a food product whose crown is produced to satisfy the hunger of citizens. We know that it gives a lot of energy to the body and that it tastes very sweet and is made from the oceans. At that time, everyone will be standing in queues and waiting to take their share of Soylent Green, and we will see Soul, and he is among the people standing in line. And meanwhile, Robert is watching Tab because he is suspicious of him. And as soon as he leaves his house, he goes to his beloved Mars to investigate. He is with her and asks her some questions about Tab. He keeps walking around the house and searching, and he tells March that their house is big and has a lot of rooms. She tells him that they were lucky when they found it at a good price and bought it. Then Robert opens the door and walks away. At the same moment, March discovers that Robert took the spoon she used to eat jam with. Robert returns to Saul, and they sit together eating vegetables and food that Robert stole from William's house. They are very happy while they eat, because they have years left to eat this food. At that time, Saul tells Robert that he found many things about William in the files, and Saul tells him that William was born in 1994 and graduated from law school in 1977. Saul also knows that William was a factory manager in Virginia who specialized in the manufacture of refrigeration and drying devices for food processing, And in 2018, William was a member of the board of directors of companies Soylent Food. And then Saul tells Robert that the Soylent Company has the entire world's food supply, and the fact that William is a member of it means that he is a very important person. And before Robert leaves the house, I still have the hanging jam that he stole from Marca's house before he left her, and when Saul eats the leftovers. The jam in the spoon wants to make him happy, and this is because he has not eaten jam or eaten strawberries for years because it was in a box. The price of the jam reached $150, and then Robert goes to call from the public phone with a bad name to tell him that Tab is bringing jam at his girlfriend's house, and the jam costs $150. So, what driver can bring jam at this price? They know that his suspicions regarding Tab have increased, and they go to Cheryl's house to investigate her and find out that Cheryl has her friends, and they stay up late together. So he takes her, and they stay over the room so that he could talk to her at ease, but on behalf of everyone, she responded without any tension, telling Shirley at this time that William was assassinated for a reason, and he was not killed for theft, as everyone was suspicious and asked if William had relatives, or if she knew who he was working for, so she would know that she had not heard. Before that, he said that if anyone had read this, he did not talk to him at work. But she knew how many of his friends she had and would tell him that William was strange the past few days, and he was suddenly crying for no reason. At the same moment, Charles attacks the apartment and beats Cheryl's friends. He takes Robert out of the room at their voice and asks Charles why he hits the girls. They say that they do not respect the rules, and at that time, Robert informs him that he will let them file a case against him and rule him again. In the morning, Robert goes to the church, which is full of poor people, and everyone takes it for granted. Why is he away from the street, and Apple is at the time of the story, to talk to him about William because he used to go to this church a lot? But the story is that he tells Robert that he does not remember anyone named William, and shows him that he is sad and tired because of the conditions of the people around him in the church, and he tells Robert that he does not look anymore. Anyone who has been rich in the church for years, and this is because all the people who come to the church now are the poor. But Robert remains a designer who thinks about storytelling with William. He asks him to tell him if he had said something to him because he was killed. At this time, we find that the storyteller is running away from Robert as if he knows something and is hiding it or is afraid to tell him about it. So Robert leaves and is upset because he has not come up with anything. When Robert goes to work, he learns that William's case is closed, and this is because there is no evidence of his assassination. So Robert is very nervous because he believes that all evidence indicates that someone intended to kill William, especially since he was an important person and worked in an important place. So they sold Hatcher. The order to close the case came from important people in the country, and he would not be able to open it again because these were orders from above, and at that time, Robert would get upset and leave Hatcher, and he would walk away at the top of his anger, and the next morning, Governor Henry would know from the head of security. The Doe found that Robert will complete an investigation into the case of William's murder because he is not satisfied to hear what he says about the case. They say that Robert went to the church and spoke to the storyteller for 20 minutes.
The problem is that this storyteller went to William and confessed to him their secret that concerned Soylent Green because he wanted the storyteller to help him repent. At the same moment, Henry asks Donna to act and do what he is supposed to do. And then we see that Repent is going to church, and at that time he kills the story and abandons it. And we realize that he is working for Donovan and Henry. The next day, we see the people gathered in the market, and everyone wants to buy from Soylent Green, which looks like chips. At the same time, the police are talking to the people through loudspeakers, and they know that the Soylent Green product is finished, and they ask them to leave and come back the next day. But at that time, the people collapse, and Beth, because of hunger and poverty, there is a huge chaos, and the police are trying at this time to control the situation, but the situation is very difficult, and people's anger is abnormally intense. At that time, waste collection trucks arrive and pick people up from the ground. When he enters his house, he finds Robert waiting with them on him, and they beat him with extreme violence. At that time, Martha screams and is afraid of what is happening. Robert keeps asking Tab about the one who asked him to kill William, but Tab remains silent and does not respond. So Marca loves that she intervenes because she defends Tab, but Robert pushes her away, and then Robert goes to Cheryl's house and they hug as soon as he sees her, and we find out that there is admiration and love between them, and she helps in treating the wound that happened to him due to Gilbert's bullet. At the same time, he arrives at the law office where William worked, and he learns from his colleagues that William knew something about the food company that produces the Soylent green product, and the owners of the company did not feel that this was possible. William speaks. They decided to get rid of him, and this all happened because of a terrifying and terrible secret they knew about the company and the product of Soylent green bite Tatumsol at that time from those who knew him, and because of his shock, he decided that he would commit suicide, and we learn that there is a building designated for suicide, which is a merciful killing that is carried out under the supervision of the government. Meanwhile, Robert sees a message from Saul when he returns home, and we learn that he was depositing there in order to commit suicide to Robert's house, and he quickly goes to join Saul, but he finds him on his deathbed, and they read, and in his last moments he tells Robert the secret he learned from Soylent green in the house. Robert hears what he hears, and then as Robert is leaving the place where people are committing suicide, he sees waste transport vehicles taking the bodies of the suicide bomber and walking away. I am very surprised, and Baker is riding in one of them and writing that the vehicle is going to a waste disposal factory. In the factory, he is shocked by the sight that occurs in front of him, which is the bodies being dropped on the devices so that they turn into Soylent green, the well-known and most popular food product currently, and it is known that Sin Green is not made from proteins and oceans as they said about him. At the same moment, William sees two workers in the factory, so he tries to escape from them, and they beat them both and he falls from high places, and then Robert comes out of the factory and calls Hatcher from a public phone and says that he is in danger and needs his help and calls Bashir to take care of herself. She does not expose herself to any danger, and suddenly armed men attack Robert, and some of them repent, and then Robert is shot and leaves. He went to the church to hide among the poor. Beirut repented and looked for him among the people. As soon as he found him, he hit him and attacked him. Everyone in the church woke up and became afraid. At this time, there was a knife in Robert's hand, so he took it and took it away. He repented. And the police arrived at the place with Hatcher, and they told her about the secret. At that time, he knew that the torrent you were running was made of human flesh, and there was nothing wrong with it. It's called food made from the oceans, because the oceans have become destroyed, and they read that everyone knows while on the ambulance stretcher that Soylent green is made from human flesh.